Hi everybody, great to have you here. I'm so excited to be cooking with you in my kitchen in New York City, and I'm making Shakshuka pita pizzas. I'm so glad you joined me. So Shakshuka, I don't know if you know what it is, but it's super popular now, so you probably do. But it's a Middle Eastern, North African dish that is basically this wonderful aromatic tomato sauce. And in it you put eggs and you simmer them in the eggs, and then you usually eat it with pita. So I have taken those ingredients and turned it into an individual pita pizza. And it's just a really fun recipe. It has all the flavors of shakshuka, and I think you're gonna love it. It's basically a meal in itself. And I'm doing this live today in partnership with Tomato Wellness. And if you don't know about Tomato Wellness, you need to know about them. So first of all, you can follow them at Tomato Wellness. And tomatowellness.com is the website. And basically they are all about, and we are all about, sharing the wonders of canned tomato products and jarred tomato products. And they're really amazing, and it's one of the star ingredients of this recipe. And throughout, as we're cooking, I'm gonna share with you some really surprising facts about canned tomatoes that you probably don't realize. So I think you'll be in on that. And I think there's a question. I'm sensing a question.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about your shirt?
My shirt. How fun is this shirt, right? The back too. So this shirt is actually from Tomato Wellness, and you can go on their website and get one for yourself. And the cool thing about it is, so tomatowellness.com, and they sell them there in the merchandise section. And what's great is all the proceeds from the sales are currently going to support men's health, specifically men's prostate health, as part of the Movember movement. So get yourself one of these shirts because they're super fun, and all your friends are gonna be jealous that you have it. Anyway, so let's get cooking, and feel free to ask questions. That's why we're here live, right? To be able to chat. Put comments in the chat box. Love that. And anyway, we're also gonna have this recipe. The link to the recipe will be in my bio, and we'll also provide a link at the end as well. So anyway, I'm gonna get cooking here. So really easy recipe. It can be ready so fast. One of the key things is making the sauce first. So let's do that. I'm just gonna put a pan on medium heat and put in a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. So this sauce is really just gonna have all those wonderful warm flavors of the shakshuka, the Middle Eastern dish. So you'll see how it comes together. So 2 tablespoons of oil, and I want it to be a nice thick sauce because when I'm making pizzas, I don't want the sauce to be watery so that it, makes the bread too wet. I want it to be nice and thick and to really stand up on its own. So 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm just gonna put in there 2 cloves of minced garlic and just get that lightly golden brown. Not burnt, of course. You never want to burn your garlic. So just give it a little heat, maybe 30 seconds worth. And then I'm going to add right into there my canned tomatoes. So I'm using 15 ounces of crushed canned tomatoes here. And I always buy no salt added whenever I can. So I'm using no salt added here. If you can't find no salt added for some reason, sometimes I find the crushed, I can't find exactly the kind I want, just don't add salt later in the recipe. But let's have a minute about canned tomatoes here. So this is the crushed tomatoes, and I always have in my cupboard probably like, oh my gosh, I can't even count all of the kinds of canned tomato products I have. I always have some kind of marinara sauce. I always have whole tomatoes, diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, tomato paste. I mean, the list goes on and on. And one of the surprising things that I wanted to tell you that many people don't realize is just how incredibly nutritious they are. In some ways, they're actually more nutritious than fresh tomatoes, which is sort of like, really? Wow. So one of the ways is that they are incredibly rich in lycopene. Now lycopene, you probably heard of it, right? Lycopene is an antioxidant, It's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. It's been shown to help prevent potentially some kinds of cancers. It's very good for heart health. It's good for skin health. So it's a really terrific nutrient, and it actually is concentrated and made more available for absorption by your body when it's cooked. So canned tomatoes are cooked tomatoes in a way, and then we're cooking them further here. But the making fresh tomatoes into canned tomatoes involves some cooking, and that makes the lycopene more concentrated. So canned tomatoes and tomato products also have beta carotene, which is a form of vitamin A. They're a good source of vitamin C, of fiber, of potassium, of iron. They have a good amount of iron in them. So it's really pretty remarkable that one of your favorite foods, which I'm guessing canned tomatoes and tomato sauces is like everyone's favorite food. How could it not be, right? That it's so nutritious. So that's my first surprise. So I'm bringing this to a boil, and then I'm also going to add a roasted red pepper. So this is just a jarred red pepper. I don't get the kind that's in brine, just a simple jarred red pepper, but I give it a little rinse because sometimes it can have a little bit of a sort of citrusy taste, acidic taste to it if you don't. And that's really one of the things that is often found in a shakshuka, is just that nice kind of roasted pepper flavor. So I'm putting that in here. Just about a quarter cup, one pepper. And that just gives it another dimension of flavor. And let that simmer. And I'm gonna add another great tomato ingredient, which is tomato paste. And this is concentrated lycopene basically right in here. Plus, it's really concentrated umami flavor. So that's the other thing about tomatoes. They add so much depth of flavor to stews, to soups, to sauces, to, really to dressings, to everything. So it's that depth of flavor that I'm going for here, and also a beautiful sweetness, right? With no added sugar, it lends a layer of sweetness, particularly the concentrated tomato paste. So that's going in there. Let me bring up another really great tomato fact. The flavor. So while I'm talking about adding all that wonderful flavor here, tomatoes are picked fresh, right? At the peak of their ripeness, and within 5 hours they're put into the can, and so they're really locking in the nutrition and the flavor. So I love tomatoes. In the middle of August, bring me all the fresh tomatoes. I want them all. But really, fresh tomatoes are only in season for a very short period of time, maybe several weeks out of the summer if you're lucky. So all the rest of the year, you're going to get the most bang of flavor from actually those canned tomato products. So you're getting more flavor that way. So I'm going to add a little bit of honey to this because I like to balance the flavors of the spices with a tiny bit of honey. And that's just about a teaspoon. And then I'm going to put in these spices a half a teaspoon each of ground coriander and ground cumin. So that's those warm, earthy spices that are so sort of quintessentially Middle Eastern in that way. Although, these spices are also used in Indian cuisine, really in Mexican cuisine, so they're quite global flavors, but in this context, they really ring of that Middle Eastern flavor. I'm gonna put in here a quarter teaspoon of salt because I had the no salt added tomatoes. And I think that's about it. Maybe a pinch of crushed red pepper flakes. And you can do this to taste. So you're gonna get a little bit of heat in there. So you really have a nice flavor dynamic here. You have the umami from the tomatoes, the warm spices that are very rich and earthy, a touch of honey to kind of round everything out, and a little bit of heat too. So I'm gonna let this simmer. You want to let this simmer for about 15 minutes until it becomes really nice and thick and the flavors have melded. And I have one that I already did that I'll show you how it turns out. So it should be really nice and thick like this in the end. Boils down quite a bit. So just about 15 minutes though, it doesn't take very long. And one of the things you can do with this sauce, so this sauce makes enough for 8 pizzas, 8 of these mini pizzas. So what I like to do is I like to freeze it in ice cube trays, and then I can pop out 1 or 2 of the sauce cubes and thaw them, and I can make, or even 3 or 4 of the sauce cubes, depending on how many I'm planning to make. And then I make as many, you can just make 1 pizza for lunch, which is nice if you're home on your own. You have this part ready, and the rest is super easy to put together, which I'll show you. I don't know if there's any questions or comments coming up.
Yeah, we have a ton of questions and comments, one of which are your thoughts on whole canned tomatoes with the skin on.
Whole canned tomatoes with the skin on. So usually I take the skin off of the tomatoes, and I find that they're usually peeled when I buy them, when I buy canned tomatoes. So I haven't really, maybe sometimes there's a little bit of skin on them, and that's fine. I have no problem with it. I kind of like a little bit of that texture, and there's no reason not to include it. It's purely a textural thing. If you want to have a very smooth sauce, then you'd put that through maybe a food mill or a food processor, or get the kinds with the peel off. But I think there's really no difference besides texture as far as I'm concerned, as a chef and nutritionist. So another really great fact that I want to share with you about tomatoes, but I'm gonna keep you in suspense about that because I want to keep moving with this, because you got to see how this recipe comes together. So the sauce is made, that's all ready, and I just brushed a sheet pan with a little bit of oil, and that's an important part because sometimes you really don't want it to stick. And I find that to be essential for this, to just brush it with a little oil or spray it with some oil spray. Okay, so I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna spread some of the sauce onto each pizza. So I'm just gonna make 2 here. By the way, this sauce also will last in the refrigerator for about 4 days. So, you might not even need to freeze it, or you can make a double batch and freeze it so you have it on hand. So it's easy to make and it's easy to have on hand. So I like to brush these with a little oil. I use whole grain pita. These are just regular pita breads. You could also use whole grain naan if you want to, or even if it's not whole grain, that's fine too. But I really try to incorporate the whole grain whenever possible. And it really works here in terms of that like beautiful deep flavor. Okay, as I'm spreading on here a little bit of the tomato sauce, I want to talk to you about another surprising fact. Because there's a lot of talk all the time. I hear a lot of chefs saying, oh, get imported tomatoes. Actually, it's really, you'd be maybe surprised to know that so many blind taste tests actually reveal a preference for US grown tomatoes, which I think is a really cool thing. It's really nice, I think, to support the farmers and the farm families in the US. And I always try to do that as much as possible. And to know that you're actually getting an incredible tasting product, maybe even a better tasting product as a result, is fantastic. So go USA, and go USA tomato products. And I know that the farmers really put the love into growing these products, and I really appreciate that. I believe in thanking a farmer. So thank you, farmers. Thanks for putting the love in. And we've been using that hashtag, put the love in, a lot to really celebrate that. So a few tablespoons of the sauce goes on there. Then I like to add vegetables whenever possible, right? So I like to put some chopped spinach. So I just bought some baby spinach. I took the bigger stems off and then just chopped it up a little bit, coarsely chopped it. I'm gonna put that on. And you could use here, if you wanted, you could use baby kale, that would be delicious. You could use Swiss chard, really any tender leafy green would be nice. Arugula would be nice here too. A little peppery flavor. And then the reason, this is like, I think the really fun part of this, is I'm gonna make a well with my fingers into the center of each. Just make a little deep well. Oops, come back here, you. Okay, so I just build that up a little bit. make a well. And then I'm gonna crack an egg, and I crack it into a bowl, because this way, if I get a little shell in there, or if the egg doesn't look right, or if the egg breaks a little bit as I'm cracking it, I can save that for something else. And I really want the whole egg here. And then I don't have to try to fish it off of the pizza, which would be not that easy. So I make it easy for myself by doing it this way. And then I just put the egg right into the center of the well. And if a little bit of the white drips onto the pan, that's fine because you sprayed it, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, I'm gonna do that with the next one. And the great thing about this is the egg on the pizza really makes it a complete meal. It really gives it that shakshuka vibe because the egg is like cooking in that tomato sauce with all those great spices. And then on top of there, I'm gonna put some feta cheese, a little sprinkle of feta cheese. Now here, if you don't have feta, you could use goat cheese. You could, or if you don't care for either of those, you could use a little bit of shredded mozzarella. That would work too. So really, however you want to do it. I love the feta here, that kind of briny saltiness, and it just really works great with those shakshuka flavors also. It's pretty commonly added to shakshuka.
Would you only eat this for breakfast, Ellie?
So typically, someone's asked me if I would only eat this for breakfast, so because typically shakshuka is eaten for breakfast. I'll have pizza for breakfast any day of the week. Please, thank you very much. So sure, for breakfast, absolutely, or brunch. But I would eat this for dinner. I would eat this for any meal of the day. It would be a beautiful lunch. It has all the elements of a complete meal. It has your whole grain, it has your vegetable, it has your protein. A lot of that vegetable nutrition coming from the canned tomatoes, of course. And I would eat it for dinner with a nice salad. That would be beautiful. So I think any meal of the day, shakshuka pita pizzas. Okay, so then basically what you do is you just put this in the oven at 450 for about 10 to 12 minutes, just until the whites are set and the yolks are still a little bit runny. And then you let it sit for about 5 minutes and the egg will continue to kind of cook through. And that's how you do it. I'm gonna leave this here actually for now because I made some for you, and this is how they come out. Nice and toasty brown. With that beautiful egg, and I'm gonna eat one now because they are just looking so good. Doesn't it look great? I hope you make it. I think you're gonna really love it. And let's see, is there anything I'm forgetting to tell you? I think I told you everything that I can think of about canned tomatoes. I don't know if you have any more questions about that.
For the sauce, if you weren't making this dish, what other spices would you add?
Oh, I guess I don't understand that question. If I weren't making this dish?
If you weren't making the shakshuka,
Oh,
what other spices in the tomato sauce
well,
would you add?
Well, I think it would depend what I was using it for. Honestly, this sauce just on its own, I don't think it needs anything more. It is like super flavorful. So you could literally toss this sauce with pasta, just as it is, and it's super fabulous. I might not cook it down as much if I wanted it to be a little bit looser. But it's always sort of fun adventure cutting pizza, right? But you have to see this. This is looking so good. And I have got to bite into it because how could I not? Ooh, look at that. Perfectly cooked. Gorgeous egg. Got that tomato sauce. Got that crispy. So good. I hope you make it. Check out the link. And thank you so much for joining me. Get the shirt.